Hello and welcome everyone to the Living Well Longer Movement as Medicine Lunch and Learn seminar. This is the second installation of our 9-part series focused on the science of aging and actions you can take to ensure that you live the highest quality of life possible for as long as possible. My name is Lisa Schneck. I am your Wellness and Activities Director here at Heritage Palms. I'm certified through the National Academy of Sports Medicine as both a personal trainer and a nutrition coach, through the Titleist Performance Institute as a level 2 golf fitness instructor, and through the Functional Aging Institute as a Tai Chi instructor. This presentation is intended for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your healthcare provider before beginning or modifying any exercise, nutrition, or supplement routine. So we go in with the understanding that how we age depends more on our daily habits than on unmodifiable factors such as age or sex, genetics. Today, we'll explore how intentional movement becomes one of the most powerful forms of medicine available to us as we age. Movement influences every system in the body, from cellular energy production to brain chemistry and emotional well being. It's not simply about burning calories or maintaining a certain appearance. It's about vitality, strength, and the ability to live life fully and independently. Think of today's session as a guided journey through how movement works as medicine, how it preserves mobility, protects joints, strengthens bones, supports balance, energy, mood. Together, we'll uncover how every step, stretch, and rep communicates with your body's deepest systems, telling them to stay strong, adaptive, and alive. When you move your body, you're not just exercising muscles, you're activating an entire cascade of biological systems. Movement sends signals that improve circulation, nourish joints, energize cells, and lift moods. Each category of benefit connects. Movement increases synovial fluid, lubricating and protecting joints. Movement triggers mitochondrial energy production for better stamina, and it releases neurotransmitters, your body's own feel good hormones that improve focus, reduce stress, and elevate happiness. Even your blood and lymph circulation depend on movement. It's the muscle contractions which actually send the blood and the lymph back up from your lower extremities. Now, health is built through cycles of challenge and recovery. When we push ourselves in movement, we create a form of what's called positive stress. This stimulates adaptation. It's called hormesis. It's the process by which a small intentional stressor actually makes us stronger. However, it's the recovery phase that transforms that stress into strength. Rest allows tissues to repair, the nervous system to reset, and the body to emerge more resilient. The key is balance. Too little stress, and the body becomes too deconditioned. Too much, and it becomes exhausted. Sustainable wellness is learning how to honor both sides of the equation, stress and rest, so that growth can occur naturally. Movement has a profound effect on emotion. Each time you move, your brain is releasing endorphins. These are natural pain relievers that create a sense of calm and satisfaction. It's secreting dopamine. Dopamine drives motivation, anticipation, and reward. It's the chemical that says, let's go, before you've even started. Serotonin regulates mood, sleep, appetite, and digestion, and it shapes the quality and stability of how we feel. And endocannabinoids, these regulate appetite, they enable you to have nutrient uptake into the cell, they help with energy storage, and they help with metabolism in tissues like your fat, your liver, and your muscle. Now, by contrast, a sedentary lifestyle, you're secreting a whole different profile of hormones. Cortisol is one of them. And these hormones are going to lead to inflammation and fatigue. If you look at this screen, endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, endocannabinoid, we hear these terms a lot, and where we hear them are antidepressants. You can think of movement as nature's built-in antidepressant. Even a brief walk, a simple stretch, sitting and taking a few breaths, this can restore balance to your mind and body, and it can help you to feel more grounded and more focused. Now, I think we all notice that as we get older, our performance tends to kind of decline. So our muscles become weaker, our energy can dip, we can develop aches and pains, inflammation, so on and so forth. And we attribute that just simply to aging. But the empowering truth is muscles can grow stronger at any age. The difference lies in the signals that we're giving them. When the body is active, neuromuscular pathways are staying sharp. Myokines from muscle tissue reduce inflammation. Bone density is maintained through regular loading. In contrast, when the movement is absent, that's when sarcopenia or muscle mass decline begins to accelerate. Inflammation rises, reaction time slows. The good news is that this process is largely reversible. With progressive strength training, balance practice, and consistent daily movement, the body continues to adapt, no matter how many birthdays we've celebrated. Many of you will have heard me liken this to purchasing a vehicle brand new off of a dealership lot. So you have a brand new car and you bring it home. If the only thing you do with that car is put fuel in it, right? So you're ignoring the oil, you're ignoring brakes, you're ignoring transmission fluid, whatever it is, you're just putting fuel in there. And that vehicle will continue to perform reliably for quite a while. But as you begin to approach 50, 60,000 miles, as you're getting to the end of that warranty, the performance will begin to dip. And while the age of the car does matter and the miles that are on the car matter, those are not the reason that your performance is dipping. It's because there are certain things that you just have to do. Well, our bodies are much more fantastic than a simple automobile. Our bodies repair themselves and they adapt to exactly what we ask of them. So if we're active, then we're asking our body to be a body that can be active. But when we're sedentary, we're asking our body to be a body that's just going to sit there. And that's where the decline begins. Now, as we begin to age, one of the first things that we will notice is stiffness in our joints or discomfort in our joints. Your joints actually contain this remarkable substance called synovial fluid. It's a lubricant and a cushion. And when you're moving your body, that synovial fluid is circulating around. It's taking toxins away from the joint and it's bringing nourishment into that cartilage. You can think of it as if you were to compress a sponge and stick it into a bucket of water and then release, that sponge is just going to suck in all that fluid. Well, your joints are the same. Whenever you're moving them, you're bringing that nourishment into the joint. So without this happening, the cartilage can dry, it can stiffen, you get discomfort. Motion truly is lotion. It keeps joints healthy, functional, and pain-free through the simple act of consistent movement. So what I often recommend to people is when you get up in the morning, you have your cup of coffee or your cup of tea or whatever it is, and you're sitting there, you can actually work your way up the body and just sort of move each joint without putting any weight on it, move each joint through its range of motion. And just that simple thing, something as simple as doing ankle circles, can really be powerful for people. Now, here we're going to revisit for just a moment our last Lunch and Learn, where we were talking about those three catalysts of aging. And we talked about inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction, and cellular senescence. I'm going to breeze through that just real quick. Inflammation is where your body senses that there is damage, and so it sends all of its helpers to that area. It's not a bad thing. It's a bad thing only when it just doesn't shut off. So you've just got inflammation, it's systemic, or it just continues indefinitely. Cellular senescence, this is where a cell is no longer functioning properly, but it isn't dying and it isn't being removed. Instead, it's sitting there and it's sending off these chemicals and causing inflammation in the cells that are around it. It's a big problem. It's one of those major catalysts of aging. And then finally, the mitochondrial dysfunction. And so we talked just a bit about mitochondria. These are within each cell, there are hundreds or even thousands of these little power plants within the cell. And you can begin to get dysfunction in the communication between the mitochondria and the cell. And that's where you have a bit of a breakdown. So these mitochondria, they generate the energy you need for every movement, every breath, every step. I got a little poetic there. But as we age, the mitochondria, they can become damaged. They can become less efficient. Largely, it's this breakdown in communication. But movement is one of the most powerful ways to keep them healthy, and you actually even create new ones if you're training intelligently, if you're moving intelligently. So you have exercise creating this controlled stress, and that controlled stress is signaling the cell to improve. Your body's now responding by building new, more efficient mitochondria, and this movement is helping to remove these zombie cells that are causing inflammation. And at the end of the day, this is better cellular health, which is translating into vitality and resilience. The cellular renewal process is why consistent movers often feel decades younger than their sedentary peers. Their cells are literally functioning more youthfully. All right, so we can look at this screen and almost feel it, right? These do not look like comfortable postures. They certainly are not comfortable postures, but they're very common. And unfortunately, what many of us have come to believe is that this is a normal part of aging, and it absolutely isn't. As a matter of fact, you can actually see these postures are beginning to affect teenagers now because of their very sedentary lifestyle. So on the left here, we have an example of upper cross syndrome. And on the right, we have lower cross syndrome. And what they are just a combination of weak muscles and overactivated muscles. And so on the left there with upper cross syndrome, we can imagine perhaps this guy sits at his desk all the time. Maybe his computer screen is a bit lower. So he's got these tight chest muscles. He's got weak upper back and deep neck flexor muscles. And so the muscles essentially, for simplicity's sake, we'll say the muscles on the front of his body are contracted and pulling forward, which causes the inhibition. So the central nervous system literally just shuts off these muscles in the back of his neck and in his upper and mid back. And then you get this muscular imbalance. Well, once you've got the muscular imbalance, the next thing that's going to happen is we're going to get a joint dysfunction. And from the joint dysfunction, we're going to get an injury. And from the injury, now we're courting permanent damage, right? When All that was needed was to release the muscles that are tight, activate the muscles that are inhibited, and then sort of do some exercise that unifies them all. When I explain this to people, I don't think they necessarily believe me when I tell them, you're not sentenced to this. There's no age in which you lose the ability to release a muscle or activate a muscle, and you certainly don't lose the ability to build your muscle and to strengthen your muscle. So, on the opposite side here with lower cross syndrome, I really identify with this guy because I actually skew toward having lower cross syndrome. When you see this, the person's bum is out, they're kind of leaned forward a little bit. And if you've ever experienced it, for example, maybe go on a long car ride. So, say you're driving for 3 or 4 hours and you get out and you can't quite stand up. Right. That's lower cross syndrome. And there are people who walk around in this condition every day of their life, not realizing they don't have to walk around like this. What's happening with this guy is his abdominal muscles are weak and his glutes are weak, while his hip flexors, and when we talk about hip flexors, we're talking about the muscles largely on the inner thigh. There are some muscles deep in there that you can't necessarily see that actually wrap from the top of the thigh and then up around the hip and hook into the spine. So these muscles become contracted, and that turns off the glutes, it turns off the abdominal muscles, and then over time those muscles that are turned off, they atrophy, while these other muscles are overly constricted, and your body will just begin to model there. Like I said, though, you absolutely can do something about this once you've pushed it or you've allowed it to proceed. And then so as an illustration, let's take this guy on the left who has upper cross syndrome. Now, if you take him and put him into a 5-iron posture and ask him to swing a golf club, because of that rounded back and the head forward, he's not going to be able to stay tilted forward, hinged forward, and then rotate his arms around behind him enough to be able to effectively hit the golf ball. So instead, he's going to stand up and lose posture, or he's going to do some other things. And of course, he's courting actually injuring himself. And so it's just very important to address these things. And it's a simple, systematic process in order to make that happen. So I mentioned at the beginning that I'm certified through the Titleist Performance Institute as a level 2 golf fitness instructor. The Titleist Performance Institute, or TPI assessment, it's a comprehensive look at how your body moves. We're looking at limitations, imbalances, and we're able to assess the movement with precision, and we can address asymmetries very effectively. It's a very concise and wonderful program. I'll tell you that when I went for my education with the Titleist Performance Institute, I had already been a personal trainer for quite a while. And I was blown away by their education and how concise and just systematic this program is. This assessment, it's essentially, we're looking at each joint and the range of motion of each joint. And based upon that, we're able to identify mobility restrictions. We're able to identify, muscles that are overly tight or they're inhibited and they're weak. And then from there, we're able to personalize the plan for the individual. So when you do the TPI assessment, which I offer complimentary to any Heritage Palms member who would like to have a TPI assessment, not only do you get the assessment, but there's actually an app that you would download, and based upon the what we learn in the assessment, it will automatically provide you not just an exercise prescription, but with each exercise, it'll tell you, how many repetitions to do, how to execute the exercise. And there's even a video there with one of the co-founders of the Titleist Performance Institute who walks you through how to do the movement, why you're doing the movement, and so forth. This functional approach, it ensures your movement program is built on a solid foundation. It's not guesswork. It's very effective. So the point of this slide here is we're introducing resistance training or strength training. And for anyone who wouldn't know what that means, it just means that you're performing an exercise that has resistance. So whether that resistance is a weight you're picking up or it's a band that you're stretching or whatnot, it's a resistant exercise. And so when you first begin performing resistance exercise, or if you have been exercising for a while and you've went through a pretty intense phase of exercise, you would come back to this phase one, this foundational fitness approach. And I just want to talk you through it a little bit. The first thing I want to address is a myth. So there is a myth that by using a light weight, you can tone your muscles. Muscles do not tone. Muscles get bigger, they get smaller, they can become stronger, they can become weaker. You can have more fat covering them, or you can have virtually no fat covering them. But there's no such thing as toning a muscle. If you're going to strength train, you have to lift enough weight to activate your muscle adaptation and even your central nervous system adaptation. You have to have enough weight. So the problem then lies in determining what constitutes a light weight. So if someone were to say to my husband, go pick up a light weight, I don't even know what that would be. But for me, a heavy weight is 15 to 20 pounds. For him, he would consider that to be a lightweight. And for somebody who is deconditioned that I'm training for the first time, even just a few pounds can work as a quote unquote lightweight. The way that you are able to determine the weight you should begin with is how many times you can complete the exercise you're attempting with this weight. So let's say you're doing a bicep curl and you pick up a dumbbell. And of course, if you haven't done this before, I'm hopeful that you have a professional with you. But let's say it's a bicep curl and you're performing it correctly. And let's say that the weight that you have is 5 pounds and you do your bicep curls and you get to 15 or 16 repetitions. What that tells us is that that weight is too light. So you want a weight that you can only lift 12 times. So you're completing the lift 12 times and then you have to rest. So you might do one set, right? So you're going to pick up that weight, you're going to lift it, complete that lift 12 times, then you're going to rest for 90 seconds, and then you're going to go back and you might do another set. You might do anywhere from 1 to 3 sets with a 90-second rest. If conversely you picked up a weight and you can only complete the exercise, say 4 times, that weight is too heavy and you need to find the weight that you can lift pretty much exactly 12 times. Where the 12th time you lift it, it's pretty hard to complete. Now, I wanted to go into another component of this that is incredibly important and that a lot of folks don't know. Now, in the in-person version of this slide, the presentation of the information I'm giving you right now is probably a bit more interesting. But we're talking about tempo. And tempo is also very important when you're training, depending on what kind of training you're doing. So, here in this foundational period, the training tempo you would use is 4 seconds. So, a 4 count lowering of the weight, a 2 count pause, and a 1 count raising of the weight. So imagine we're doing a bicep curl. We've got the dumbbell at the shoulder, and our elbow is staying put, not moving, pinned to our torso. So as we lower that weight from the shoulder down to the hip, we're going to count to 4, nice and slow lowering. We do that because that lowering phase of your lift is the most powerful phase for your central nervous system development, the muscle growth. It is more powerful than the actual lifting phase. At the bottom of the movement, you would pause for a 2 count, and then you're going to raise it back up pretty quickly, as quickly as you can with the weight that you are working with. So it's 4 counts down, 2 count weight, and then 1 count back up. Now we're going to learn a little bit more about this as we go to the next slide. On this slide, we're looking at strength training versus hypertrophy training. So, strength training is neurological. You're working with the central nervous system. That really knocks people's socks off when they hear that. It knocked mine off when I heard it. That this training of strength isn't about your muscle, or at least it's not as much about your muscle as it is your central nervous system. Hypertrophy, on the other hand, it's absolutely the whole goal of hypertrophy training is to make your muscles bigger. So if you want to get bigger arms, bigger shoulders, a bigger bum, whatever the muscles are that you're wanting to get bigger, that's hypertrophy training. I want to stop here and say, though, that you would not go into strength training or hypertrophy training until you've done that base fundamental fitness training, right? So what we were just looking at here, this is where you're going to start. I just want to illustrate the strength versus hypertrophy training because it reveals some things to us in understanding how this works. I want to give you a little bit of an anecdote. So when I first moved to Florida, 14 years ago, I went to work in the design industry and I did project management on flooring and window treatment jobs. A lot of them were pretty big jobs. It was for a small company out of Cape Coral. And the deliveries that we would have of this flooring material, this was really heavy stuff. So when we were busy, we would bring in extra help. And this one time we had a crew of Guatemalan men, and we had a high schooler. He was a football linebacker who was getting some extra work over the summer. Now, the linebacker, he was a big guy and he had big muscles. And this Guatemalan crew, they were only maybe 5 foot tall, maybe 125 pounds, maybe more, maybe 140 pounds, not very big. And I know I'm probably not burying the lead very well here. I'm sure you know what I'm going to say, that the Guatemalan crew, those men could lift far more than the linebacker could. They could go longer, they could go further, they could go for much longer period of time, yet they were much smaller than the high schooler. And this is a perfect illustration of how strength is different from hypertrophy. So when we're doing strength training, we're using a very heavy weight. So how heavy? Again, we can determine that pretty easily by lifting a weight. So I wouldn't go in and just try to lift 100 pounds. Of course, you want to start a little bit smaller than that, but you want to find a weight that you can only lift it 1 to 5 times before you have to rest. So in the case of that bicep curl, you've raised the weight up to the shoulder, lowered it back down, and you could only do that, up to 5 times. Now, here's the kicker. When you've done that loading, when you've lifted that weight, let's say it's 3 times, you've lifted the weight 3 times, you need to do 4 to 6 sets of that, which means you're going to lift that weight 3 times, 4 times to 6 times, 4 to 6 sets. But in between each set, you have to rest for 3 to 5 minutes. Now, a lot of bodybuilders get grief at the gym when they are lifting a weight a couple of times, and then you'll see them go to their phone or talk to each other for 3 to 5 minutes. And to someone who's not experienced with this kind of training, it looks like they're really not doing anything, but in fact they are. Now, the tempo for this sort of lifting, there's no hold. So you're completing the lift and lowering and raising the weight with no pause. It's just as fast as you essentially can do it. And the entire point of this kind of training is maximum force production. It's about neural efficiency and functional power. When we look at hypertrophy, things change just a little bit. Your reps go up. So you're going to get a higher number of lifts per set. So again, let's go back to that bicep curl. You're going to raise it up from the hip now it says to 6 to 12 times. Generally speaking, I would not do more than 8 to 10 reps training for hypertrophy. Now, there's different reasons why you might go to 12 repetitions, but in general, I would keep it closer to 8, maybe 10 repetitions, and then you're going to do that 3 to 5 times. But the rest in between is much shorter. So you've got the weight. Let's say you can lift it 8 times, and on the 8th time that you lift the weight, you find it's incredibly difficult to lift it with good form, right? So then you're going to rest for 30 seconds. As soon as that 30-second rest is over, you're lifting it for another 8. And then you're going to rest for 30 seconds. And then as soon as that 30 seconds is over, you're going to lift it for another 8. Now, the tempo for hypertrophy training is, again, it's a little bit different. You're going to do a 1-2 count up and a 1-2 count down. So you're raising it 1-2, and then you're lowering it 1-2. And of course, it'd be more like 1-2, 1-2, but no pause at the bottom. 1-2, 1-2. When you're doing hypertrophy training and you want that muscle to grow, it's the inflammation and the metabolic buildup, right? So you've got to get volume. It's about getting a moderate weight, a good number of times. And this is going to give you your muscle growth. This is going to give you your metabolic benefits. So for longevity and functional fitness, a blend of both approaches works best, building the strength to move confidently and muscle mass to protect your metabolic health. Just another note, you wouldn't do them simultaneously. Generally speaking, I would do phase 1 training with someone, move to hypertrophy training, and then finally strength training. And from there, you could even move into things like power training. Now, the next thing we want to talk about is cardiovascular training, specifically HIIT training. HIIT stands for high intensity interval training. And when people hear that, they immediately picture, elite athletes and sprints and so forth. Anybody can do HIIT training. HIIT training means that for you, what you are doing is very difficult. So when we're talking about cardiovascular training and HIIT training, we know cardiovascular training, it strengthens your heart and your brain. It helps you better produce energy within the cell through the mitochondria. What HIIT training does is it brings that concept of hormesis into your cardio training. And so a great example of HIIT training would be that let's say you're on a bike, and let's put you in the gym so you're nice and safe. So let's say you're on a bike in the gym, and for 2 minutes, you're going to pedal at a pace that's really pretty comfortable. whatever that is for you, whatever comfortable is for you. Then for 30 seconds, you're going to up the resistance of the pedals. So it's hard to do. And you're going to go as hard as you can for just 30 seconds. So most of us can do a lot in 30 seconds if we know that we get to rest after that. So you would be very intense for 30 seconds, and then you would rest for 2 minutes. Once you've rested for 2 minutes, you would go back in for 30 seconds. And you would only do this for 20 minutes. You wouldn't do it for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. 20 minutes is all you should be doing because, again, let's remember this is hormesis. We're asking our body to do something that's incredibly taxing and stressful, but only for this very brief period of time. And so it's completely sustainable. It doesn't stress us out mentally either. It's actually very invigorating because when you do that burst of movement, that's much more than you've probably done in a very, very long time. But you only have to do it for 30 seconds. And so you can. Now you're releasing all those endorphins and all those good hormones, and it'll make you feel really good. And so you're going to alternate between the rest and then that very brief but intense period of training. Um, this sort of training is great for your VO2 max. It's great for insulin sensitivity. It's great for cellular energy efficiency. It also specifically targets visceral fat. So whether you're one of those folks that has like the distended belly that's kind of hard, where the belly is hard but it's big, that's fat beneath your muscle and around your organs. But you could be a thin person and appear to be a normal, healthy weight. And if you're not taking the time to get this movement and you're not eating so well, you can have a lot of fat accumulated around your organs. It's very bad for you. This HIIT training is an excellent way to address that. And then, of course, once we've done our, whatever type of training we're looking to do, the next step is recovery. Now, there's a lot we can do for our recovery. We sleep, we rest, we get massages, we eat well, right? So we want to get that protein in order to rebuild our muscle and hormones and enzymes and hair, skin, nails, all of those things. We want to get the micronutrients that we need for our systems to function. That's all part of recovery. But for our purposes today, when we're talking about movement as medicine, when we talk about recovery, I want to talk about heat, cold, and contrast therapy. Now, these are all examples, again, of hormesis, where you're introducing a stressor. The body has a reaction to the stressor, then the stress is removed, and you're better off than you were before. So with heat, you've got the sauna, hot tub, warm bath. This is increasing circulation. It relaxes your muscles. It reduces stiffness, and it helps with cellular repair. I've heard incredible things specifically about the sauna. Very good for you. Cold therapy, quite different. We're talking about ice baths, cold showers, cryotherapy. I personally take a 30-second cold shower every morning, and it does make you feel really good. Little bit intense. You want to have your breath right, and don't ever just let it hit your feet. You really want to put the torso in there right away. But it's not as unbearable as it sounds like it would be. And when no matter how groggy I might be when I get into the shower, when I come out, I really do feel good. Now there's one thing to keep in mind here. The cold shower, it's increasing your mental resilience, it's boosting your metabolism, it's reducing soreness. But what it's also doing is it's reducing inflammation. And so if you were doing, like, let's say, the hypertrophy training, you would not want to do your training and then go into a cold plunge, because the cold plunge is going to reduce the inflammation. And in that case, you actually want the inflammation. The inflammation is what's leading to the repairs that will be made that will make your muscle bigger. So you don't want to go into cold therapy after you've trained. Now, 48 hours, 72 hours later, that cold therapy might come in handy, but not right away. You want to give yourself some time. And finally, there's contrast therapy. And this is where you might, for example, go into a sauna for a couple of minutes, come out of the sauna and go into a cold plunge for a couple of minutes, exit the cold plunge, go back into the sauna for 2 minutes. It sounds like I'm describing a torture, some sort of a approach to torture. But the people that I've heard from who have done this say that it feels really good. Like your body just really feels good. And the reason for that is just like we said with hormesis, you're introducing this stressor in this very brief period of time, then you're removing it. Your body's had a reaction to the stressor. It's kind of overreacted. And now you're benefiting from it greatly. So there's lots of good research out there that you can pursue. You can talk to your medical provider, but this really is it's exciting how good these therapies can be for you. And along those same lines, we're going to talk just a little bit about supplements for movement and recovery. As I said, always consult with your healthcare provider before anything, starting new supplements. This is especially true if you're taking medications, because it's not 1 + 1 = 2. A supplement can interact with your medication. You can even take two supplements that will, one will bind the other. So you do want to talk to your doctor about this. You can also do a lot of research on your own. And when it comes to taking supplements, you really want to be discerning. So if you're going to purchase a supplement, you need to make sure it's been third party tested, it's from a safe provider, and that sort of thing. So in the in-person version of this seminar, I actually have an entire handout of supplements. If I've sent you this video, I've likely attached that handout as well. It's a pretty exhaustive list. And there's also like the reasoning why we would use supplements. So not very long ago, people would say, you're taking these supplements, you're just creating expensive urine. That's not true. It's absolutely not true. There is plenty of research that shows the effectiveness of supplements. And there's a few reasons why we want these. So for one, we don't all eat as well as we should. And the foods that we eat, if they're whole foods, right, they're directly from the earth, or it's meat from an animal. So these are whole foods. Our body is built and it runs on these macro and micronutrients. If you're not consuming them, then you're going to have some sort of a deficiency. It's going to impact you. This is the stuff your body runs on. And unfortunately, what can happen as we age is it's a couple of things that happen, actually. But the one, as we age, it can become difficult for our body to absorb this stuff. So even though we're taking it in, maybe we're not absorbing it so well. The same is true if you consume a fair amount of alcohol. You can get some stomach inflammation, and now all of a sudden you're not able to absorb B vitamins and that sort of thing. In addition to that, our soil just does not have, it's the way that we have farmed, and that's changing now. But for decades, for quite a few decades, the way that we were farming, just it led to the leaching of of nutrition from the soil. So when the plants grow from the soil, it's the nutrition, those nutrients that are in the soil that are now in the plants, and then we consume them. Or, the 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 animal would consume them, and then we consume the animal. Well, and a good example of this is an orange. So an orange, if somebody ate an orange 100 years ago, we would have to eat 8 oranges today in order to provide our body with the same nutrition as that orange from 100 years ago. So the soil also is a bit depleted. But here are 6 of the supplements that I recommend. Collagen, this is supporting joints and skin elasticity. Magnesium aids muscle relaxation, sleep, energy. It helps with digestion as well. Magnesium is typically bound with different chemicals, and it will create a different type of magnesium. So there's magnesium citrate, magnesium glycinate. I take magnesium glycinate every day. And it is known that many people in our country are deficient in magnesium. It's a very important supplement. Creatine, this enhances strength, muscle mass, and cognition. 5 grams a day. My husband takes creatine. I don't. It makes me feel bloated, so I don't like it, but he does well with it. Omega-3, this is reducing inflammation. It supports heart and brain health. It also offsets if you're getting a lot of omega-6 from like beef and things like that. Turmeric or curcumin, and specifically curcumin. So if you were to go and get this supplement, I would tell you to get curcumin, not turmeric. Curcumin is the active ingredient in turmeric. And when you take just the curcumin, and especially if you get a supplement where the curcumin is with black pepper, the black pepper increases the bioavailability of the turmeric. I think it's like thousands of percent. But curcumin and black pepper, in studies, it's as effective as an over-the-counter pain medication in managing pain, and yet it's not a pain medication. It's an antioxidant. It's a wonderful supplement. And then the combination of vitamin D3. So this is the sunshine vitamin, and K2. This is another one that we really do benefit from as we age. This is supporting bone density, immune health, and muscle function. So we can put this all together into practical movement habits. When it comes to movement, if you're just starting out, 7,000 steps a day is an awesome goal to go for. Now, it's not realistic for everybody. And the fact is that every single step you take is a step closer to being healthy. It's powerful. But what they have found in research is that when a person gets to about an average of 7,000 steps a day, all markers of disease just fall away. Now, I'm not saying they fall completely away, but it's at 7,000 steps that your health will dramatically increase. In addition to those, getting those 7,000 steps a day, every hour that you're awake, if you could just get up and walk around relatively briskly for just a couple minutes, that really offsets prolonged sitting. So as an example, I sit at my desk in the activity center a good portion of the day, but every hour, and sometimes more often than that, I get up and I find places to be and things to do, whether that's walking up the stairs, walking over to the clubhouse, visiting with members, walking in the gym, walking the rooms, whatever it is, just to get that movement for about an hour. And what this does is it helps with your blood sugar, the glucose levels in your blood. And then strength training two or three times a week, 20 to 30 minutes at a time is fine. There's no reason, unless you're doing that strength training, of course, there's no reason for you to feel like you need to be in a gym for a long period of time. We can really overcomplicate what strength training is. You're just doing a couple of exercises with some weight for, a few repetitions. It really isn't that complicated. It can just be overwhelming when you first start. Any any assistance that you need, I'm here to support you with that. And then hydrate intentionally. I see it go both ways. I talk to people sometimes who brag that they drink gallons of water per day. That's really not only is it not necessary, it's actually going to work against you. You're flushing all those micronutrients out of your body. It's just not necessary. So you want to drink about half of your body weight in ounces of water every day. And of course, if you find that you are sweating a lot, when you're sweating a lot, you're losing a lot of your electrolytes. Those electrolytes, magnesium, potassium, sodium, those are very, very important to your health. So you want to be sure that you're getting those electrolytes back in. And finally, when we're talking about building these habits, we have to understand how to build a habit. So I'm gonna pull really strongly off of James Clear's Atomic Habits here. Clear says, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the levels of your system. The most effective way to change your habits is to focus not on what you want to achieve, but on who you want to become. Every action you take becomes a vote for the person you want to be. This is a fantastic book. I'm not going to be able to do it enough justice here. But the point he makes is, when you have the habit that you want to begin, you want to set cues in your you want to set cues for yourself that remind you to do whatever the thing is, so you make it obvious. If your habit is that you want to start walking in the morning, then set your clothes, set your shoes up, right there. So when you wake up, you see them, you've got that visual reminder. Make it attractive. So if you want to go get exercise, please choose something that makes you happy. Don't force yourself to do something that you hate. If you love to be in beautiful surroundings, then that's a great opportunity, right? So if you're going to go walk outside in beautiful surroundings. If you don't like that and you want to be inside, you'd rather watch TV, perfect. Go get on one of the treadmills in the activity center, put on your favorite show and do that. Don't, set yourself up for success and think of it almost as if you were coaching yourself. How can I make this as pleasant as possible for myself? And here's the really important part: make it ridiculously easy. Um, when you're setting up these habits, what you're setting up is the automation of your action, and that means that you've got to make it very simple. So if we're talking about lowering the bar, put the bar on the floor and then just step over it, right? Make that a very low bar, but you have to step over it. Do this thing, this really simple, ridiculously small thing, do it. So for example, if you have never been to the gym before and now you want to have this habit of going to a gym, I would say get in your workout clothes, put on your shoes, get your water bottle, get yourself all set up, go to the gym, walk around the gym, and walk back out the front door. I would prefer you do that 5 times a week than go to the gym once, hurt yourself, and not go back. It's a really important part of habit formation that you do set yourself up for success. And finally, make it satisfying. You have to celebrate every win. We want to continually move the goal back, right? And before you move the goal back, please celebrate what you have accomplished, because that celebration is, again, a very important part of making the habit stick. Now, just real quick here, back to James Clear's Atomic Habits. If you look at this image, you'll see the bullseye, and you'll see in the center we have identity. Around that, we have processes. And then on the outside, we have outcomes. Okay. So what James Clear is teaching us here is that the identity, that's where you want to focus your change. If you focus on outcomes, right, you're not going to be as successful as if you focused on processes. And if you focus on processes, you're not going to be as successful as the person who focuses on their identity. Who we believe we are shapes our behaviors and will determine the outcomes. So, our key takeaways, we're just talking about hormesis. We want to move, then we want to rest, and that enables us to grow. These are core principles. And finally, join us for the Living Well Long series. Next month's session is nutrition for longevity. It will be building on today's foundation of movement. We'll explore how strategic nutrition fuels your body, supports recovery, and promotes healthy aging. You'll learn practical strategies for eating in a way that enhances vitality and longevity. The topic will include information about protein needs, anti-inflammatory eating, hydration and micronutrient optimization, meal timing, and metabolic health. Stay connected with our community. Don't miss our upcoming sessions. Together, we're building habits that support vibrant, independent living at every age. Thank you for moving well and living longer. Remember, movement is not punishment, it's communication. Every time you move, you're sending a powerful message to your body. Stay strong, stay mobile, stay resilient. Your future self is always grateful for the choices you're making today. Keep moving forward, one step at a time. Thank you all so much.